Murkomen is proposing that, Murkomen is the one who was the CS for transport when Adani was privatized. I mean, when our airport was privatized and it was the privatization tender was given to Adani. And even today, he's proposing that our stadiums in Kenya, they should be privatized, and of course, the private investors to come in and and run matters and the activities and even maintaining the stadiums. So, if you are going to have a problem but not providing a solution, we keep quiet just to come maybe on these spaces and run and talk. Then we go and sit back at home. Then this government, of course, they are going to do whatever they can because they know that Kenyans are people who can identify a problem, but they cannot follow up that problem and and of course offer a solution. And that's why the likes of Murkomen, they are proposing that we have this privatization of the stadiums. So guys, I think we should act just as Honorable Jeremiah said that we need to go to the streets there and they will join us. So I came here to talk about that issue of the stadium and what I saw in the Auditor General's report. And of course, to let Honorable Jeremiah know that the opposition of this country led by Raila Odinga, Benyalikuwa, but of course, this is in the government. So we are now having Stephen Musyoka, the likes of Jeremiah and Wamalwa. You guys have been letting us down. And of course, we want to win your trust. We want you guys to win our trust so that whenever we call upon this mandamano out there in accordance with the constitution under Article 37, you guys also turn up in large numbers because we just don't want to see you in those offices, in those vehicles. Then after something has happened, most of these young people have died. That's when you come out to talk about it, but you are not condemning it in the streets. So thank you, Anthony. That's what I had to say.
Thank you, KOT. Before Ndegwa and Akibe and Honorable Ken respond to that, I want to make it very clear and I want to be very open that I am in communication with Wakili Ndegwa, Honorable Kioni, Eugene Wamalwa, and we are trying to build this team of the Genz, the Genzote, and the Azimio opposition so that we become one big team, because teamwork is what will get us over the line. So, Moero, I think we are remaining one person, two people, then we get the closing remarks.
Yeah, we have Mount Kilimanjaro.
Thank you so much, the conveners and the head panelists, that is Wakili Ndegwa, there is Senior Counsel Kibe, Wakili Mheshimiwa Kioni. Mine is a very brief one. First of all, I'm going to pick up on what Anthony is just saying, because I think this also needs to be cascaded and also, broadcasted. That I came across Kenya We Want on Telegram. I think that there's a very good organization on that, and keep doing that, and we should improve on that. My point is going to be borrowed from what Omar said previously. And my question Omar Farah, and my question goes to Wakili Ndegwa and also Wakili Kibe, but also to even Mheshimiwa Kioni, because looking at the Adani case, number one, the framework is PPP. The model is EPCF, that is engineering, procurement, construction, and financing. If we look at the component, if we look at the structure of that, I think that is what Adani has been using in cohort with the government to justify, their PPIP. Omar Farah made this proposition of there being, a Kenyan-led solution on the financing aspect, actually, which I want to ask Wakili Ndegwa and also Wakili Kibe whether there is provision in law for Kenyans to more or less set up like an SPV to just make sure that they can, participate in such ventures. And whether, people like Mheshimiwa Kioni can have that passed in legislature, whereby, it can be in law, whereby Kenyans are actually mandated or have that provision of being mandated to make sure that they can give their input financially in such projects. Because if we have rogue governments coming into place like what we have right now, they can use such opportunities to justify some of these bad deals. I'm not going to say much about that, but I think that was a very good, proposition from Omar Farah. And this being point blank, whereby point blank is the space where more or less is a solution-led, space, which I think I just wanted to give that thought. Thank you, guys. I land.
Can you hear me, Mweru? Can you hear me, Anthony?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay.
Proceed.
Okay, thank you for the mic. Actually, I'm actually timing myself for the 3 minutes, but I'm gonna start with this. I'm not gonna say so much about Adani. I think most of you have already spoken so well about Adani, but it is so sad that we have to give our airport for 30 years to Adani in an exchange of 238 billion. What is 238 billion in a country that we have admitted? In fact, the Prime Cabinet Secretary admitted that we are losing roughly 2 billion a day on corruption. A year, it's about 680 billion. And we are saying we cannot get 238 billion to renovate our airport. It is sickening, it is sad. And we should never even compare ourselves to Rwanda because they acquired the airport via PP. You cannot compare Kenya to Rwanda. Don't ever do that. Having said that, I have a particular problem with the leadership that we have always brought in power. I mean, we've taken chapter 6 of our constitution very lightly. It is a chapter that we don't even look into. This chapter that talks about in leadership and integrity, I think we need to exercise that chapter to the fullest, because some of these leaders that we've given responsibility, their responsibility as articulated in that chapter. It requires them to respect the people. Do they respect the people? They don't. We still elect them. We need to be very selfish in our choices of leaders moving forward. I would not really want to blame anybody, those who voted for this mad regime, this mad guy. Don't blame yourself. I mean, you know what you've seen. At least you can see for yourself what is happening. You are experiencing and you are seeing where our country is being taken. But moving forward, I expect that we are able to make the right decisions moving forward. Because in most of these things, if we had a proper parliament set up and performing their roles, we could be having proper legislation. I mean, we should not be seeing some of these things happening right in front of our eyes. Because right now the people are acting like the parliament, acting like the members of parliament, trying to raise issues that they are supposed to raise themselves. Why are we paying them salaries? Okay? And you're seeing right now complaints about impeachment of Gasha. I mean, he should be impeached. He should have been impeached Kitambo. The guy came into power and started talking about shares, just against our constitution that talks about unity, respecting our diversity. We need to respect that. So the most important thing moving forward, we need to take chapter 6 seriously so that we can get a good breed of leaders. And let's get this fallacy out of our head that there's something like opposition. There's no opposition. Opposition is the people. There's no such thing as opposition in our country. It is a political narrative. We, the people, whenever we see wrongs, that is the opposition. Whatever we want, that is the opposition. So thank you very much for the mic. I'll land. I was timing myself. I will land. But we don't have any opposition. Opposition is the people whenever we have peace. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Mr. Kilimanjaro.
Yes, please.
Your 3 minutes, so that now we get the closing comments.
Oh, I made my submission earlier.
Oh, thank you. Maybe I missed that.
Okay.
We shall take our closing comments. We shall start with Honorable Keoni Ndegwa, then Senior Counsel. And before they come, I'd like you guys to take note of what Senior Counsel said about boycotting. That is something we should really think about. So we start with Honorable Keoni.
Again, in support of taking things into our own hands, including boycotts and the rest, because if we don't do that, then we could be reduced to just people who are lamenting by the people in power. But one of the things is there's a lot that has been said about the opposition. I think it's important to say that our constitution defines opposition as those in the minority. There is minority versus majority, and it is domiciled in parliament, and all that parliament has completely failed to do, and that is why those of us who are not in parliament are trying to do the best that we can within our own abilities. There is the issue of demonstrations. I think just to mention for information that before the Gen Z demonstrations, we had Azimio demonstrations where 74 young people again were killed. During Gen Zs, we lost more than that number by far. Respectively, we kept away because we were asked by the Gen Zs to keep away. We have tried, let them now come and complete the work. We did that with a little, with quite a bit of reservation, because we were aware that unless we synergize, unless we all come together and join in this exercise, not one single group will make it possible for to achieve. We'll be able to achieve what we want to achieve as a nation. So we have learned the lessons. Gen Zs have learned. We have also learned. When we are now out next time, let us accommodate each other, tolerate each other with all our deficiencies, and try and achieve something. And I have said it before, I want to repeat again. The only solution available to us is to terminate the continued management of affairs by the KK regime. We are clearly at a state capture, and while there is going to be fight in courts, I think we also need to look at these other avenues, including boycott. But I'm saying we must come back to the streets. As we continue talking about Adani, I think it is important for us to remind ourselves that the deal on KPLC is done, is sealed. It was signed before Murkomen was moved from the ministry, and also the one for Kentraco. And I think at a figure of about 639 billion, the other one at 94 billion. So when we are fighting Adani at Jomo Kenyatta, and when we want to fight it at the Ministry of Energy, it's to have to be fought from different levels, because one is concluded, the other one is in the process of being concluded. And on the issue of Chapter 6, what I think is the missing link, and while we are in a lot of difficulties, it's good also to appreciate that never before in the history of this country have we had Kenyans themselves engaging in the affairs of this country and calling out the oversight that we are seeing being done by Kenyans across the board. And I want to conclude by saying the missing link is our ability to go to the court, the Constitutional Court, and getting it made possible for us to know when we want to exercise the sovereign power directly, what do we need to do? It is there in the articles, not explicitly provided for, but implied. But at the point at which the court would then give us the path, every time we have an executive that goes log like this, we will then be able to call on that those provisions and move to take back power to ourselves without the kind of difficulties that we're having now. These guys are going to be lucky, because by the time we get that defined, we are likely to have they are likely to have exercised the power over us for the next 3 years or so. But once again, I want to thank everybody for the contributions. I have heard the challenges that have been thrown to us, and I have gotten ideas of what we can do going forward. But I'm available where I'm needed and within a short notice, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Jeremiah Kioni. Thank you for honoring the request to join us today. Ndegwa Njiru, you are next. As Ndegwa prepares himself, Senior Counsel Kibe Moigai, you can give us your closing remarks.
By way of closing remarks, I want to say 3 things. Number 1 is to answer a question that had been asked about whether Kenyans themselves should have been given an opportunity to organize by way of an SPV or any other method to be able to get the Adani deal, to run JKIA through a company. That is a mechanism that is actually available under the law. You know, something like Steamer, something like Kenya Airways, all these, I mean Kenya Power, Kenya Airways, and Genz. These are companies that were privatized to ensure that you can be able to, by just selling shares, partial privatization, you can actually be able to raise whatever money was required, one, to change management, and two, to raise the resources while this property remaining in the hands of Kenyans. Even Safaricom, it was the same thing. Safaricom was originally a public company, but today government has just a few shares in Safaricom, but everything is working okay. The problem is under the law of PPP, Public Partnership Act, what is required to be done is that you take the best interest of Kenya. The best interest of Kenya would be that if KAA is a resource that has been financed through taxpayers and loans that Kenyans are still paying, Kenyans should get the first opportunity to own it and to run it through now an arrangement in which they can be able to be the owners of it. But you cannot give it as a gift to Adani, because what Adani is getting it as a gift is definitely in exchange of corrupt money. Let us not hide our faces, the truth about what is happening. The question is it 50 billion? Is it 150 billion that state officials are exchanging with Adani to give him the deal that he's giving? But we know it's corruption 100%. Issue number two is the issue of the people's sovereignty. There is no need to beat around the bush. We can be able to write to Adani and tell Adani, the way you make notices in the newspaper, where you say caveat emptor, buyer beware. You can tell him that whoever who is president of Kenya is a citizen of Kenya with a limited mandate. To get JKIA properly, you must get the blessings of the Kenyan majority. The Kenyan majority, the Kenyan nation must view this as a legitimate deal. Because if we do not view it as a legitimate deal, then these Adani and the Asians who will come to JKIA will not be there 1 week after Ruto leaves power. So it is important we tell them in advance and in writing that you will not last there more than 7 days after Ruto leaves power. We can make that very clear. The final issue, and this is to answer the part of the question that Honorable Kioni was posing. You do not need the court to tell us or to give us permissions on how sovereign power is supposed to be exercised. We are already before the court, and it was reported today in the nation. We hire MPs to pass an impeachment against the president and his deputy. If they don't do that, under Article 1, we can be able to ask the High Court, find that violations have occurred. If they have occurred, then we have a right in a referendum to vote to remove them out of power. Remember originally, it was during the Joyous case that I had the privilege of arguing in the year 2004 without any supporting provision in the Constitution that the High Court said and declared that the citizens of Kenya have a right to approve the Constitution through a referendum. By the same logic, if we elect the president and parliament would not do its job to get rid of him when he fails, like they have failed, we can do that through a referendum. Thank you very much, everybody. I am grateful for this session. Let us believe in ourselves. And as Kioni has said, we have the right to start boycotting. Let us decide. Next week, will you use 10,000 for those like Kioni who use 10,000 for fuel, or do you use 5? There is nothing wrong in using a matatu occasionally to ensure that you bring this message to bear. That you misbehave, we can cut the pipe for resources to a misbehaving government. Thank you very much. Good night to everyone.